Good afternoon, everybody. It is great that you can join us this afternoon. My name's Charlie Jeffrey. I'm the Vice-Chancellor of the University of York. And thanks for joining us for this discussion on how UK universities can empower student leaders for Africa. And that discussion marks the launch of a brilliant partnership between the University of York, the Ashinaga Association, and Kaplan International Pathways. We'll have a couple of other introductory comments before we get to the panel. I'll just alert you now that you'll be able to submit questions at any point that occurs to you during the event through the Q&A function, which should be visible on your screen. You may wish to introduce yourselves as well through the chat function when you come to make a comment. I wanted to set the scene a little bit for the conversation we're going to have by introducing the Ashinaga Scholarships Programme at York. That's a three-way partnership between the University of York, Kaplan International Pathways College, and the Ashinaga Association in the UK. And together we're going to be providing 6 full scholarships per year for students from sub-Saharan Africa who've lost one or both of their parents to enable them to study here in York. We first met colleagues from the Ashinaga Association in late 2020 and were immediately impressed by their scholarship programme, but also, and in particular, their vision of a world where no one should be denied access to education due to their personal circumstances. Now, that vision aligns wonderfully well with our own strategy, which sets out our ambition to be a university for public good. And central to that vision, that ambition, is to build a diverse university community that reflects the world around us and to ensure that students from all backgrounds can achieve their potential. And we know we can't do that by ourselves. Partnerships are absolutely crucial for achieving this. Finding partnerships with shared vision and understanding is a precondition. So we're really fortunate to have been chosen by Ashinaga UK as a strategic partner because we share those values and those goals. Now, in the course of this event, you're going to hear from our two other key partners, as well as Ashinaga. One of them is Kaplan International Pathways, who provide foundation courses for international students. And another is Makerere University, which is one of the universities around the world we work with, who we've got to know very well through our shared membership of the Worldwide Universities Network. So we will have some thoughts from both of those to help kick the event into motion. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Linda Cowan, who is Managing Director of Kaplan International Pathways. Over to you, Linda.
Charlie, thank you very much for that. And it is a real pleasure and an honour to be here as part of this launch event for the Ashinaga scholarships. Kaplan was thrilled to have the opportunity to be part of this three-way partnership. And the reason for that is that we do have a long history of our various activities around the world. And what made this probably particularly meaningful for us is that although we are a large sort of global education organisation, our history dates back about 80 years, and we were set up by a really inspiring gentleman called Stanley Kaplan. And Stanley was born to an immigrant family to the US. He was brought up in Brooklyn in New York. And he was a first child generation to go to college. And he had a real strong belief that entry into university was not based on merit, as he passionately believed it should be based on, but was based on many other things. It could be social status, it could be heritage, it could be sort of wealth. So he set about at a really young age to sort of set up a company that actually helped to support students to gain entry into university and to try and break down those barriers so that everybody had the chance to achieve their full potential in life. So that very much embodies what we're all about within Kaplan. So a partnership like working with the Ashinaga Association for us made complete sense. So we firmly believe in the foundation, firmly believe in what you're trying to achieve, and are delighted to be part of today and be part of the partnership. We've got two students currently studying at the York International Pathway College, Deborah, who you're going to hear from in a second, and Ibrahim. So both of those are in their foundation course and will be progressing on to do their degree at the University of York. And Deborah, as I hand over to you, I'd probably also share that I know you're both doing extremely well in your sort of studies. And I think I sit back and be able to sort of watch the wonderful journey that I know you've got in front of you, and wish the two of you all the very best for your future success. So with that, I shall hand over to Deborah, who is going to introduce the Ashinaga Association.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deborah, and I'm an Ashinaga scholar from Zambia. I'm studying at the University of York International Pathway College, and I'm planning on studying electrical engineering at the University of York this September. My overall goal is to promote women's empowerment and help girls and women attain positions of influence in the societies. For me, I'd like to mention that being able to study on an Ashinaga York scholarship means so much to me. Not only do I have the opportunity to learn in the conducive environment of the University of York, but I can also develop my leadership skills to become an African leader, and I'll be ready to serve my continent. The University of York has so much diversity with people from all over the world. This has already enabled me to create networks and associate with a variety of people from the globe. At this point, I'd like to mention that being an Ashinaga scholar does not only benefit me, but it will benefit the entire Africa, as I'll be able to pass on the generosity to the entire continent. This is also to say that the community needs leaders, Zambia needs leaders, Africa needs leaders, and the entire globe needs leaders. At this point, we would like to share a little about what Ashinaga does by playing the following video, which includes a greeting from the founder and president of Ashinaga, Yoshiomi Tamai.
We all have personal goals and dreams, but we must overcome obstacles to turn those dreams into reality. Right now, there are 153 million children who have lost a parent, both parents, or whose parents are missing or chronically ill. Around half of these children will struggle to access education because of mental trauma, financial difficulties, or the need to support their family members. Ashinaga provides orphaned youth from the most vulnerable communities around the world with access to emotional support and education, and enables them to become compassionate leaders. Our founder, Yoshiomi Tamai, experienced this lack of support firsthand after his mother was killed in a traffic collision in 1963. He decided that no other child would suffer from the same situation he faced. So he established Ashinaga, which has provided financial and emotional support for over 110,000 students. In 2020, we enabled 7,612 students to attend high school or university in Japan. Ashinaga scholars come together at annual summer camps. For many, this is the first time they are surrounded by peers who have had similar experiences, the loss of one or both parents, and the challenges that follow. Our local community programs in Uganda and Senegal reach more than 1,300 children every year, providing access to education and personal development. Our flagship program is called the Ashinaga Africa Initiative. We recruit talented youth in 48 sub-Saharan African countries to be Ashinaga scholars, using a rigorous selection process to select talented candidates from thousands of applicants. Ashinaga scholars will study internationally and use the acquired skills and experience to contribute to their communities back home. Each Ashinaga scholar develops their own kokorozashi, a lifelong dream to help others, and shares a sense of onmokuri, paying kindness forward. Our work ripples out. We are not just a charity. We are a movement of orphan students helping each other, of people helping people.
this is a wonderful opportunity for me to go and study abroad and then come back to my country. I feel like studying psychology is going to help me make that outlet for people, where people can come and become the best versions of themselves possible. So not only would I be helping people, I would be helping my country as well.
Que vocês vão se tornar pessoas melhores, vocês vão conhecer, vocês têm todo o suporte, desde suporte financeiro até emocional. Então é uma bolsa completa que acho que para mim, acredito que seja única no mundo. Nunca conheço uma organização que a gente tem tanto apoio, tanto suporte, tanta atenção. É muito mais que uma bolsa, a gente cresce como pessoa também.
Our movement has come a long way in 55 years. With your help, we can go even further. In the next 10 years, we aim to increase our recruitment to all 49 sub-Saharan African countries, empowering 1,000 youth to become leaders for their communities.
Konnichiwa, Ashinaga育英会の会長の玉井です。この度は2021年度からのヨーク大学と足長育英会の協定締結にご尽力いただきまして誠にありがとうございます。ヨーク大学の皆様、私たち足長育英会の足長アフリカ維持高等教育支援100年構想にご賛同ご協力いただき心より御礼申し上げます。足長育英会とヨーク大学は今後もパートナーシップとして協力関係を築きながらアフリカの学生の成長のために邁進していければと思います。AI の学生取得、コロナ禍で大変な時期であると思いますが、できることに集中し、ものの考え方をきちっと身につけて、社会のために活躍できる人材になってください。改めてご参加いただいた皆さん、イベントの成功を心よりお祈りいたし、私の挨拶といたします。
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Saul Tandler. I'm the University of York's Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost. And I too would like to express my huge thanks to both Ashinaga and Kaplan Partnership for this really exciting project. I'm going to chair the panel discussion. We've got about 45 minutes or so to discuss how UK universities can empower student leaders for Africa, a hugely important topic. First of all, I'm going to introduce our panel speakers and give each of them a short opportunity to tell us a little bit about their thoughts. Our first panel speaker is Miriama Ajalo, or who likes to be known as Ajalo. Ajalo is an Ashinaga UK scholar studying global health and social medicine at King's College, London. While studying in the UK, Ajalo has established, along with two Ashinaga alumni, the Babe Foundation, which supports maternal and child healthcare to protect and promote health and well-being of women and children in the Gambia. Hugely important project. Ajalo has received the King's Young Leader Scholarship and has previously served as a student ambassador. So clearly a future leader for Africa. Ajalo, a couple of minutes introduction from you, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and it's such an honor to be part of such an important discussion. As you've already heard from the introduction, I'm an AI scholar, and my friends knows me as obsessed with healthcare. So Ashinaga has basically fulfilled a lifelong dream for me. I am very much invested in maternal health because this is something is very personal to me, as I've lost my mother to maternal death. And from there on, all my education has been towards how best do I understand the factors that influence for maternal health in my country. And having the opportunity to study a course like global health, where basically that is what we investigate, the social factors contributing to ill health has just expanded my knowledge in that field and has given me a better understanding of the topic, but also in the context of my country. Having lived there, brought up there, and understanding the culture, what I lacked at that particular point was the intellectual knowledge on how to very well associate these factors, because I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what was influencing these factors. Being an AAI scholar gave me the opportunity to study in a university that I wouldn't have been able to study if I was not an Ashinaga scholar, or if I hadn't had a scholarship. And I can tell there are lots of people like me out there who experience personal problems in their communities, and these are very much personal to them because they've lived it and they want to do something about it, but opportunities like this are limited and they are unable to do something about it. So I think this is a very important discussion and a very important opportunity for African leaders.
Thank you very much. It's really delightful to have you with us. Our next speaker is Professor Tracy Lightfoot. Tracy is Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Teaching, Learning and Students at the University of York, and she has overall responsibility for ensuring York offers all of our students intellectually stimulating, relevant and supported teaching and learning, and that we foster a welcoming and diverse student community. Tracy, over to you.
Thanks ever so much. From its inception, York has really been committed to that widening access to education on both a local and global scale. And this is a significant theme that spans our new university strategy as well for 2030, both with respect to our principles around collaboration, inclusion and internationalism, as well as our overarching strategic aims around an education that empowers and that community without limits. So taking all of this together, the University of York does exist for public good, and I'm delighted to be here today to be part of this panel. So linking back to that education that empowers, we want to be and we will be a university that nurtures and fulfills ambitions and prepares students for a forever evolving world. I think importantly as well here is that we won't accept any gaps in continuation, progression and award across the diversity of our student cohorts at any stage in the student life cycle, and we will act to close those gaps where they appear. So very much this is around us as a university providing different opportunities, different access routes into education and different types of programmes as well. So really delighted to be working with the Ashinaga Association here to deliver these scholarships, which not only support access to education, but prepare students to be those next generation of leaders. But I think what's really important here is that these scholarships not only provide bursary and fees to help with that financial resilience, but also participation in leadership and skills development programme prior to starting the degree and access to inspiring and innovative teaching and learning, and also communities and making friends and contacts that stay with us for life. So really it's that linking personal development skills with disciplinary ones to help support students with whatever comes next in their future careers and to become global citizens that make differences to their local communities as well as their wider world. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you ever so much, Tracy. Our next speaker is Professor Barnabas Nawangwe. He's the Vice-Chancellor of Makerere University, the largest public university in Uganda, and as Charlie said, a partner university of the University of York. His personal experience of international education studied at Kiev National University of Construction and Architecture, and it's just heartbreaking seeing what's happening to Kiev and the university in the Ukraine at this time. I'm delighted that Barnabas could join us today and can offer some reflections on a whole range of different initiatives. Barnabas, please.
Thank you very much, Sol, and thank you for that expression of concern about what is happening in my former city. We are really worried whether our university is still standing or not, and I just hope that one day the human race will realize that we can all live in peace without having to fight all the time. I was requested to talk about what I think the UK universities can support African universities in developing what I would call the next generation of African leaders. And I should begin by saying that there is a looming crisis in Africa, which is man-made, and that is the huge population explosion. If Africa's population is going to double in the next 50 or so years, it is something that must worry the whole world. But it must worry us more in Africa, and especially we in the universities. Of course, increasingly, we are being expected to find solutions for all these issues. So apart from the population explosion, there is the issue of climate change, which apparently is affecting Africa more than any other region on Earth. And up to now, 50, 60 years after independence, we are still talking about decolonization of our curriculum. So people say Africa's biggest problem is lack of leadership. And sometimes people think that we are talking about the heads of state or people like that, but the problem is really leadership within the community. And therefore, the need to train leaders for Africa at every level. And we all know that without higher education and a good higher education, it is going to be very difficult to transform Africa. So it is rather ironical that we are saying we must look for solutions in decolonizing our curriculum. Because people say, when the colonial governments left, they left universities with curricula, and some of those curricula have never changed. And the colonial powers themselves have changed their curricula many times to change with the times. And I think what is important is there is a capacity which we do not have in Africa for historical reasons. And that capacity exists in UK universities. The training, in my opinion, of academic leaders at PhD and master's level is a contribution that the UK universities can make. We are called upon to train more than 100,000 PhDs in the next 10 years. How is that going to be possible within the limited resources we have in Africa? We must look elsewhere for support in whatever we are doing. And we must come up with innovative ways of increasing the number of these researchers that we have to train for Africa for this period. And I believe that the UK, with its big number of very well-resourced universities, can actually be of much assistance to African universities in whatever we are trying to do. I am excited about our collaboration with the University of York, the MOU we have signed, and what I think is the potential that MOU holds in transforming the way we are doing things here at Makerere and maybe other African universities, training the next generation of leaders. And I just hope that this can be rolled out to more universities within all the means that are available. So I think in one word that I would say how the UK universities could help train the next generation of African leaders is pay attention to the people who are going to train those leaders for Africa. And that is training more PhDs, more masters in a decolonized curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Barnabas, and that was really clear and really helpful. Our last speaker this afternoon is Sir Eric Thomas. Eric is a trustee of the Ashinaga Association in the UK. He's the former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Bristol and has served as the chair of the Worldwide Universities Network and as president of Universities UK. He was knighted for services to higher education in 2013 and is a champion of part-time higher education and indeed of widening access to education. Eric, over to you. You're muted, I'm afraid.
Some people might, can we hear now? Yes?
Yeah.
Some people might wonder why in the world I got involved with Ashinaga. Well, just as background, my brother Damien has lived in Japan for 44 years as a Japanese family, so I came to know Japan very well. And through the Japanese ambassador in the United Kingdom, came to meet President Tamai and Ashinaga. And I think it's important that everyone is aware just how important Ashinaga is in Japan. It is nationally recognized. As already been mentioned, it has affected 110,000 students' lives, enabling them to go on to an educational future that they probably could never have thought of, particularly having lost one or both parents. And it's a real triumph of philanthropy and educational forethought in Japan. And it's taken the unusual for Japan, and one would say courageous step, to think that it should actually move on to more global responsibilities and think just outside Japan. And that's what the Africa Initiative is about. It's about taking all the skills and resources and experience that Ashinaga has about bringing on individuals educationally so that they are able to move out of the educational environment they are into a different, richer environment, which will then enable them to get an international experience at a university in the UK and for some of them at universities in the US. And the plan is that those individuals will be committed, and they have been, they have shown that commitment to going back to the countries from which they came to make a difference. And it's a unique initiative. It feels very privileged to belong to it. One can foresee decade after decade going forward that some of these young students are going to make the very huge difference to their countries. And I'm absolutely delighted that York has seized the day, in a sense, with really taken this opportunity to get some of the very best students that Africa can possibly offer, help them to develop, and then to help them to develop back home. So a global vision for a Japanese charity, even though its main activity at the beginning had been in Japan.
Brilliant. And it's such a lovely initiative, joining up Japan with Africa, with York, with Kaplan. It's really dream space. And being able to involve Makerere University as well is just fabulous. So we've got about 25 minutes or so for questions. I mean, if I look at the question and answer section where people can post questions, there aren't any questions there. So as compare, I guess it's down to me to start a discussion off. Jallo, you've been a scholar, an Ashinaga scholar. You know, how challenging did you find it initially coming to the UK, to London, and start your studies? Did you feel supported? I mean, what do you think we can do to enhance your leadership skills and take you forward as a future leader?
Thank you. So it's an excellent question. I think when I was coming to the UK, I already had some classmates or others who were already in the UK. And when I got here, I asked, how are you people able to cope when you are here without the training that I had? Because I could not possibly imagine coming to the UK, London alone for the first time, and not having had the training that I had when I was in Uganda. We had about 8 months training. There was intensive global perspective training on academics and leadership. And we formed very good relationships. And we were thought about UK culture and stuff like that. So when I came, I had known some things. But of course, coming to a new place would always present its challenges. But I always had the Ashinaga office, and I was always close to my SRC. These are people who are assigned with student affairs, more like a personal tutor, but a bit less formal. And in case of anything, I also had the Ashinaga students. And on a very personal level, at some point during the pandemic, I lost my dad, and the family was just there for me in that difficult time. And this is not something you usually see within international students. Most of the time we are alone because we don't have family here. You don't have a lot of friends, especially during the holiday. But what we do have as AAI scholars is the family here. I don't spend Christmas alone. Some of my friends would come over. I'd go to my friends. We do Sudoi together, and that is one of the things we always look forward to because it's a very tight-knit family. So as an AAI scholar, I don't quite feel the pressure of an international student in terms of being alone.
Excellent, thank you. I mean, Barnabas, you talked about the importance of curricula going forward and having the right courses to develop leaders. Do you think that we have it right yet? I mean, where would you move and what tools would you use to stretch students to ensure that they're really outstanding leaders of the future?
I don't know whether we need to stretch the students at all, but I think we need to give them the right information. I was one time at MIT, and there was a Nigerian-born professor, and he told me, I came to Makerere, but you are teaching your engineers the way engineering was being taught in the 50s. And this was 2000. And he told me you are telling them to cram all these formula and which are available on the internet everywhere. They don't need to cram them. Just tell them how to utilize those formulae to come up with solutions to different problems. And I think that's what needs to be done to change the mindset of both maybe the professors and the students themselves, that education is about empowering society, is about changing the conditions of the people. It is not about attaining so much knowledge and then not being utilized. Because what's the use of knowledge if it is not transforming society? So we just need to say, what is the purpose of the university? Of course, we all say these days the university must be relevant to the community. So how is it relevant to the community if it is not solving the problems of the community? So if we can redesign the curricula to tell the students, you are here because you are expected to go back to the community to change their condition. And you can only change their condition if you are coming with solutions for them to improve their lives. I think that is the most important thing, so that the curriculum is best in the society. It is based in what the society lives, in what the society sees every day, in the challenges that they are facing. So the curriculum must be designed in such a way that it is actually designed to solve societal problems, but not for people to amass knowledge which they cannot even use after they leave the university.
Great, that's really helpful. We've got some questions coming in now, and maybe one for you, Eric, around. Is there a typical route for students into Ashinaga and beyond? If you look at the plan for the foundation and where it's going. What's your expectation? What's your aspiration? How do you see this developing?
I mean, at the moment, the numbers are very small. We have to accept that it's generally we're taking one student, possibly two students from each country. So at the moment, this is a relatively small activity, but one which is planned to increase quite considerably. I mean, there's a lot of learning curve to be done. We need to know how we can best prepare students from these particular backgrounds to go to the universities, and the educational needs that they have, and then the coming to terms with the different social and cultural challenges that they will face, which of course the Japanese were well used to in Japan, but is a new challenge in Africa. And it's important to get it right because we don't want the students to be having bad experiences. So just for the moment, I'm afraid it's quite competitive. There's quite a small number, but the plans are there to expand this as rapidly as possible. And I have to be honest with you, if it hadn't been for COVID, we'd probably be having many more students now than we would have had, than we currently have.
Excellent. And we completely sign up to this longer term plan and projection. Tracy, what role do you think technology has in supporting students? What's great is being able to connect with people around the world very quickly now. And then, I should say I've met with Barnabas when he's been in a speeding car driving through his city, and it's just fab. The technology works really well. Can this aid students becoming leaders for Africa? Africa is a sort of 4G connected continent.
I think it can do it in different ways. I think the fact that we're doing this remotely today speaks to the value of technology, and just hearing in stories from colleagues. So I think technology can help build those communities, and in particular thinking around before students start in York or at any other university. I'm really struck by the leadership programme that is part of this and how students can connect in the first instance. I think going back to Barnabas's point as well about the making curricula real life events, not just about theory. I think technology can help there as well, because we can bring some of those projects that need to be developed and those real life projects into the curricula, and get students, even if they're in York, to work with different parts, different countries, and to work with Makerere on individual projects linked to the city. So I think that's another example. I think the third example as well is about access to resources in a very different way as well. I think, books perhaps are a thing of the past in some ways now, so technology can help because resources are more widely available. We digitised an awful lot of our content because of the pandemic. You could even do a walk around the Louvre now, a virtual walk around. So what can we do where technology can provide students in Africa with experiences of what the city of York looks like as well, even before coming here? So I think it's something that we shouldn't be afraid to look at as part of these partnerships and studentships to make communities a much smaller place. I think on a personal level, I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years talking to colleagues from universities, both within the UK and overseas. And technology has enabled those connections. I know it can be quite challenging and reaching out, but without that, it's really made the world a much smaller place, I think, and opportunities like this to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a couple of questions. First, there's a question from Ivan, who's a PhD student who's interested in the link between York and Makerere, wants to understand how Ivan can participate in this partnership. And I should say that we're really delighted that we've signed the MOU with Makerere, and we're putting in place a range of different projects in the research side. We're thinking about how we can use technology transfer skills developed at York and elsewhere to support Makerere University, and also to think about direct links around health economics and other research areas. Barnabas, do you have any thoughts about links and how they can grow from this initial seed?
I think that, as you have said, we are already collaborating on the issue of health economics, and as probably everybody knows, health is one of the most important issues in Africa, and especially with this growing population and the climate change, which is bringing new diseases and putting a burden on the economies, making the poor economies even struggle more because of the burden of disease. And I think that is an area where anybody can participate, because health is a multidisciplinary area. It involves almost everything. But the issue that, of course, Saul knows I'm very much interested is in the area of technology transfer. How do we do technology transfer? How do we make the university address society problems from the knowledge that is generated in the university? And that is a very big issue. So if the participant really wants to come and participate in this is an area where I would interest you, because it is a virgin area. As I said, we are having an exploding population. I think African cities are beginning to experience a little bit of unrest and instability. For Uganda, I would say it is no longer a little bit, it is real instability because of the large number of unemployed youth on the roads who are getting involved in a lot of difficult things, which many people would call criminal acts, things like drugs and so on, because there is no hope for them. There are no jobs. There is no amount of foreign or direct investment that will change that situation. So we as universities must come up with mechanisms of transferring our knowledge, which we are creating in the universities, to products, to making products, to churning out companies that will then employ this multitude of youth that are coming out. And that's the only way we can contribute to ensuring the stability of these nations in Africa. Yeah. And you are welcome to participate.
And we're completely signed up to that. And Ivan, if you want to contact me separately, we can put you in touch and think about how we can link you up. There's a nice question, a couple of questions for you, Agela. One around the impact that the scholarship has had on you and your career, but also one on how you as an individual student can go and have a wider impact. You know, if you look at this fellowship that you the foundation that you've set up as part of the fellowship work, you know, how has this foundation sort of impacted more broadly on the African continent?
Yeah. So firstly, what has this helped me to achieve or change? I think our foundation is starting up, as is basically students who are trying to run it. But I think what we are envisioning is a healthcare system in the Gambia where women and children or preventable deaths are not going to be claiming the lives of Gambian women as it is doing right now. So, and we do recognize the cause of deaths as preventable and sometimes quite unnecessary. And a lot of organizations also have been acting to change this, looking at the biomedical factors to this. But we recognize an area that has been neglected and we think is a key factor in what is affecting Gambian women. And that is, one is the kind of education that the caregivers are receiving, yeah, and two is the level of power among women, their empowerment, and girls' education. So in my country, I studied science. So I was able to learn reproductive health, sexual health, but it's limited to that science. And so sexual health information is not available to young girls. And it has been associated with high rates of pregnancy and stuff like that. So what this foundation does is to kind of alert the system to realize these gaps and try to solve it from the root cause instead of just solving maternal health, just scratching the surface by providing more hospital beds or building another hospital. We want to empower the local facilities, the women, but most importantly, bring in the stakeholders in healthcare and make sure that health policies in Gambia does reflect the realities of Gambian women, and whatever intervention is coming in does reflect the actual needs of Gambian women. So this is what the foundation is doing. And as to how the scholarship has impacted my education or my career, in fact, I think having studied global health has really given me better understanding of how Gambia's health system functions in relation to its political system, its economic system, and the cultures that surrounds these determinants, And I think that is what has shaped my career into healthcare, and still building it as I realize also data collection in my country is a big problem. And so I am looking forward to being an epidemiologist and more into evidence-based healthcare. So this scholarship made it all possible for me to start from the very foundation of understanding exactly the factors of good health and ill health.
Thank you. And what key skills do you think you've learned have helped the foundation be such a success, or your scholarship be such a success? And maybe after that, I'll come to Eric and talk about leadership skills and what key leadership skills he thinks are important. So, Ajala.
Yeah, I think the most important skill, I would say, is a better understanding of healthcare in relation to Gambia, the intellectual knowledge, because when we don't have the understanding of the problem, we create solutions that do not actually address the problem. I think having the scholarship and being in university equipped me with the knowledge and skills necessary to understand the problem at hand in its entirety, be it cultural, economic, or political. It's one of the skills. Another skill is the leadership development that we've been having in Ashinaga throughout, and the understanding that I need to pay it forward. And these are skills that we are taught in Ashinaga as an AI scholar. The importance of paying forward to society. And I've got this opportunity. What can I do to help my society back?
That's really interesting, and it's something that perhaps not all students think about, this concept of paying forward, and certainly when I went off to university a long time ago, I probably was much more selfish and hadn't really considered the paying forward element. Eric, you've done some tremendous jobs over the years. What do you think are key leadership skills and key skills that the Ashinaga scholars need to develop to be resilient in the modern world?
Well, I always like the concept of emotional intelligence, the concept that you're able to understand how people are responding to you and responding to the things you're asking them to do, even though they may come from very different parts of the world and very different backgrounds. And it's a particular skill to be able to interpret how people are actually responding to you when they come from 6,000 miles away and a different background. And we do whatever the populists are trying to do. I'm afraid we do live in a globalized world, and understanding how that world functions. And if you're going to go back to Africa from 3 years in Europe or 4 years in Europe, how are you going to take those skills you've learned to be able to integrate with the world? So I think I think that's actually a very crucial part of leading multinational teams, actually, a central part of leading multinational teams. And I suppose the other piece of advice that I was given once about leadership was, you're the captain of the ship and you'd better know where the ship is going. And I think it's a real, you're plotting the route. You are the person who says to the whole ship, this is where we're going. So if you're going to take a responsible leadership position like that, you have to have worked your way through to that position, obviously in consultation with your colleagues. But you must be pretty clear about where you're taking the organization about maternal health, where you see it going, what you see the journey going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And that kind of simple thinking is often quite difficult to do.
Absolutely. Barnabas, what about you from your perspective? Key leadership skills that you would recommend that the Ashinaga scholars thought about?
I think one important, I don't know whether it is a skill, but maybe, I don't know what you call it in English, attribute or whatever, is self-confidence. For the scholar to be confident that they are in a privileged position, that they have the knowledge that millions of other people don't have, and that the future and well-being of those other millions is in their hands or in their brain. That is extremely important for African scholars, to be able to understand that they are able to do all those things that the people around the world are able to do. It is a very important thing, I believe, for the other thing is to be able to understand the society in which they are living. Mm-hmm. Because if they don't understand the society, if it was like, I am really excited to listen to Jalo, that she got some experience, some knowledge, and she wants to apply that to change her society. That is extremely important, to understand the society from which you come, to which you are going back, and which you are expected to transform. And so understand the cultural norms and the economic hardships that the people go through, the level of technology, because it would be futile for you to come, for example, from Britain as a scholar of, let's say just, for example, agriculture, and you expect that every farmer must have a combined harvester, whatever they call them these days. He must have tractors that are planting and weeding. And you are talking to the local community who are not even able to buy a simple hoe. So people must first of all understand the culture and also the socio-economic conditions. And so the African scholars must know that they have a responsibility which is very different from the responsibility of a scholar, for example, who is a citizen of Britain, because the citizen of Britain is addressing completely different issues as a scholar from Africa.
And Tracy, how do we ensure that, in such a diverse community, that we recognise the individuality of the scholars from Africa, but also, we have scholars from around the world and scholars who live in York and come from their home to the campus every day and then go back to their family home. How do you cope with such diversity?
So I think it's on two levels. I think it's about what goes on in the classroom and what goes on outside of the classroom. And I think the outside of the classroom, we've got clubs, we've got societies, and that's one way to do it. I think it's within the classroom is where we need to pay more attention to this. And I think it's around that interdisciplinarity. I think it's about more group work. I think the skills piece, it's the collaboration and finding those projects that, you know, Barnabas, you talked about those challenges and taking things back to the home country or different countries. I think putting projects together to bring students from different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds in terms of their own personal circumstances, but also disciplinary backgrounds is key to some of this. And I think that's, for me, how we need to be moving forward, because students get used to working across disciplines and with different groups and to problem solving. I think for me, it's coming together to solve problems, and that can then tackle those local challenges or those global challenges we've got. Where that's some of the things we're trying to do in York at the moment in terms of our interdisciplinarity. And we've got some specific examples of modules we're hoping to do. But I think it's a long journey, but I think it's one we need to co-create with our students as well. We need students to help us design what this looks like and how you want to be involved in those. Thank you.
No, thank you. We're pretty much out of time, so I should thank the panel, Barnabas, Eric, Tracy. I think we want to do a really special thank you to you, Ajello, for your inspirational work and your inspirational words. You know, it's great to hear from you, and you know, I'd love to see you in 5-10 years' time as a hugely successful leader in Africa. I'm sure you'll go from strength to strength. So thank you in particular. We hand over now to Michael Rovera King, who is the director of Ashinaga UK, for some closing remarks. Mike, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. So I'd like to close today's wonderful event with two very brief thoughts. First, a most sincere thank you to all the speakers. It's been fascinating and I've been inspired and educated in equal portion. And second, thank you to everyone who has taken time to join our session today, especially on such a sunny day here in the UK, but I appreciate from all around the world, so thank you. If you would like to learn more about our work, if you think that you would be a good mentor for Ashinaga York scholars, if your company could offer internships to our students, or if your organization would like to contribute financially to our work to empower the next generation of compassionate young leaders for Africa, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or my colleagues. At the end of the thing, there will be a slide up with our contact details. We're incredibly proud of our partnership with the University of York, and we now want to work with you to help us take it and our scholars to the next level. So thank you so much today for everyone for your time.